So apparently, millennials are just now turning 40 years old. We are officially a generation of middle-aged people. And now because of that, we have some interesting stats to see kind of how we're doing compared to our parents. And oh boy, our generation sucks. What is going on, everybody? My name is James with Heavyweight Politics, and today, we got this article I saw from Business Insider, right? Actually, a friend of mine actually sent this over to me because, well, the whole article is about what is the typical, about middle-aged millennial going through right now. And, they're about, I'm about 28, my friend's about 37. So, they sent this over, and their response right below it was just, you gotta be kidding me. Right? Because they actually have a successful life. They've actually done very well for themselves. But of course, this article is about the typical 40-year-old millennial. And what do they go through? What struggles are they going through right now? So real quick, we're just kind of going to go ahead and scan a little bit through this article because it has some interesting things to say here about what millennials' real struggles are. And what you'll notice is the majority of these struggles are all kind of self-inflicted. Really. So let's start with the title here. Meet the typical 40-year-old millennial who has $128,000 in debt and not nearly as wealthy as their parents were and is known as geriatric. So, one things that have actually really defined apparently being a millennial is, of course, our massive debt because for some reason, it's not for some reason, but a lot of millennials took out massive debt to go to college, right? Most millennials are suffering with, a lot of them are suffering in the hundreds of thousands of dollars off just student debt alone. And I don't fully blame them for this for the most part, right? Think about it. They went for school for 12 years, where all 12 years of their life they were told, you gotta go to college. You gotta go to college. You'll be a failure if you don't go to college. You must go to college. Now, of course, there were a few people like me, like my wife, who went, I didn't go to college. My wife, she went for 2 years, got, associates, then stopped from there. We didn't spend any money really on our college. None of us have any college debt because of it, and we're doing fairly well for ourselves. And a big part of that is the fact that we didn't take out massive loans, right? Once you sell yourself up with a massive loan at that young of an age, is there any wonder you're going to have problems, right? And let's also face it, our schools don't teach any amount of economic literacy, right? So, of course, these people think this is going to be a good bet, and they start taking out these massive loans, and they don't understand how to set a balanced budget and how to pay it off or anything about that. And the school has no interest in telling them how, of course. They just, guidance counselors, they'll help you set up wherever you need to so you can go to college, but they won't help you figure out how you're going to pay for it. That's the big problem. How do you pay for it? So this article has a couple things on here. First, of course, it describes kind of what a millennial is and say that, for the most part, older millennials were the hardest hit by the Great Recession, which I think is still somewhat debatable personally. But then we get to this interesting portion here. Their early postgraduate years were marked by a tough job market, which led to wage stagnation. The typical 40-year-old head of household millennial earns $73,000 a year. I'm sorry. Just, if you're making $73,000 a year and are still apparently struggling, you just suck. All right, I'm just going to say it. You suck. Me and my wife made far less than that for a good long while, and we were very happy. We were still very well set for the most part. We were still building up some stuff in our savings. We were paying off credit cards, and we made far less than that combined, and we were doing better. Now we make far more than that, but at that time we were making less than that, and we were still paying off our credit cards, right? We were still eating healthy. We were still doing things we wanted to do, like going off and doing half marathons and going out hiking and going camping trips. Like, we still did this stuff, and our combined income wasn't even that, right? Now, again, now we do very well, right? I mean, we have a very nice house. We have a kid. It's a big 4-bedroom house. Yes, we are renting, but we're looking at buying here shortly. But to say that if you're making $73,000 a year and you're struggling, I'm sorry, you suck at budgeting. This is a you issue. This isn't, oh, society's so tough on you. This isn't that, oh, the world is difficult. This is that you have no idea how to spend your money. You have no idea how to save your money. You have no idea how to invest your money. Now, again, I can't blame them entirely for this because I learned all this stuff from my dad. right? My dad, at a young age, he gave me a bunch of like economic books, and he said, "I'll pay you $20 for each one of these books you read." And I started going through them one by one, one by one, one by one, and I started learning a lot of lessons from that sort of stuff about the idea of course, building up some residual income in some way, shape, or form, whether it be through investments or side hustles. Whatever you're doing, you need to have that back, line income. You also need to learn how to budget, and I also learned, of course, tons of things about just mindset, having the right mindset and understanding. Guess what? I might have to make a sacrifice today in order to have more tomorrow. Millennials are not taught this. They never were taught this. In school, this was never once even mentioned. We didn't have a single economic class that taught us anything about budgeting of any kind, right? The reality is in America, I'm sorry, if you're making $40,000 a year, you should be able to be fine. I'm just going to say it. If you're making $40,000 a year, you should be fine. And if you're not, if you say, "Oh, my rent's too high. Oh, I can't go do the things I want to do." For one, if your rent's too high, you need to freaking move, right? It's easier than ever to move. And it was amazing how little it was for us to pick up our things from Virginia and move here to Charlotte. It was not nearly as expensive as you would think. It is easier now to move than ever. Live outside the city if that's your issue. I guarantee you a lot of these people are living in cities. Move outside the city. You'll find a house. Our house we're renting right now is outside of Charlotte, and its rent is lower than 1-bedroom apartments in Charlotte. And it's a 4-bedroom house in a decent area, right? Move out. Move away from these areas. You don't have to be right next to everything. It's fine to be away. It's fine to, be on the outskirts. That's just fine. You have to earn your money, and eventually, maybe if you want to live in the main part of the city, you can work your way up to there. But I'm sorry, if you're making $73,000 a year and you don't know, and you're still struggling, you got a problem. This is a you problem that you need to fix because you are doing something wrong. This is not society. But the article keeps going down, right? And it explains a little bit, about, of course, their wages, everything here, and says pretty much it's everyone's fault but them. Apparently, it's made building wealth difficult. With a net worth of $91,000, the typical 40-year-old head of household millennial is only 80% as wealthy as their parents were at their age. Again, let's get some context here. 1, they still have access to more resources than their parents could have ever dreamed of. The fact that even making less than their parents, they can still have access to the wealth of information of the world through the internet and a computer makes them far more, in a way, wealthy, if we use the term wealthy, outside of just the financial means. They're truly more wealthy than anyone's ever been before them, even though they might be making less. Now, the fact they're making less is an issue, right? We want people to start, of course, start advancing past their parents. It's kind of the whole point. We want to create actual generational wealth. As much as Democrats kind of berating the idea of generational wealth, the reality is that's what every parent's dream is. For their kids to go further and beyond anything they were able to do, right? Now, that's not always the case, but because the fact that the standard of living has increased to such a substantial degree, they're still in a way more wealthy than their parents ever were. Now, yes, not enough millennials, of course, right now own property. That's a big issue. They need to learn how to properly manage their money, how to properly just budget in general. But the fact that they have access to the internet alone makes them, I think, more wealthy than their parents were at their age. Because I remember when my dad was my age, he told me, all the stuff that he did, all the stuff they had to overcome. And I haven't had to overcome jack. I haven't had to do jack compared to what my parents had to do. Right? I have lived in crap hole apartments, right? I've lived in a 1-bedroom apartment where, just roaches everywhere. It was $500 a month. It was a trash place. It was creepy. It was a weird place, right? And it sucked. All right. I had $50 a week to work with food. It sucked. Yet even with that, the stuff my parents had to go through was way worse. Because during all that, guess what I did have? I had an Xbox, I had a TV, I had internet, I had a phone. Just those things alone made life so much easier than anything else that my parents had to deal with when they were that age. So, yes, they are making less than their parents, but if they knew how to actually utilize what they had, they would be in a much better situation. Also, they would actually have some appreciation for what they have in comparison to what their parents had. But let's get back to it. So, Next thing here is they also have $128,000 in debt. And while some of this may be from student loans, they don't carry the weight of student debt as much as younger millennials. And of course we know this, right? Because everything now has been about student debt. Student debt this, student debt that. The reality is you made an agreement saying, I will take out this amount of money and go to college in the hopes that I will make more money. That's on you. Again, school's fault too for pushing on you, but at the end of the day, you did sign down a line, you gotta pay it back. Sorry. It's a lesson. Maybe you won't send your kids over to, a 4-year university to learn some BS degree that isn't going to help them. Maybe you'll learn the lesson and send your kid to a trade school. Just saying. Or maybe you'll say, hey, just go straight to the workforce. One of the biggest tips I ever got was when I told someone who was a very successful business owner, hey, I'm going to school for business. Their first response to me was, why? And I said, well, because I want to go into business. And he goes, so go into business. Just start a business. He said, do anything. Just don't go to college. It doesn't make sense. He said, anyone who's actually teaching business has never run a business. Therefore, will give you nothing but outdated information. And I took one business class in college. One business class in college before I dropped out. And at the beginning of that class, I joke you not, the first thing we learned was why communism is a better system of economics. That was what they were teaching in my business class. Right after that, how affirmative action is so amazing and fantastic. I dropped out shortly after. It was the best thing that's ever happened, because the fact I dropped out made it so I didn't have any real major debt, right? It was a community college. It didn't cost anything in the first place, right? And I was able to go straight into workforce and manage to have a very nice career. And of course, eventually meet my wife and have a kid and have all this. And I didn't have to worry about all the debt. Now, this also has to do with the parents. Parents should have been playing a bigger role in their kids' lives. But at the end of the day, listen, you took out those loans. This is on you. Pay them off like everyone else has before you. Now, sure, I think we could do some type of freeze on interest because it was the government that told them to take out these loans. But tough luck, all right? This is your decision. You're the one who signed on for it. The fact that you went to college and never once had the epiphany of, okay, what am I really learning here? That's on you. Not on me, not on the rest of the taxpayer base who, you want to bail you out. So let's end this on at least a little bit of a good note, right? So likely a big chunk of their debt comes from mortgages. The typical 40-year-old millennial does own a home, which is good. Property is important. Me and my wife right now are looking at hopefully either next year or pretty soon after getting our house, right? Actually buying land and building a house. That's what we want to do. We want to have a lot of land. We want to be able to do a lot with the land. We want to have the freedom to do what we want to do on that area. So we right now have a lot of money in the bank. We're ready to go. We're just looking at a few places, and we'll see kind of after this lease runs out, where we might end up moving out to. And it's good to see that at least the older millennials are starting to get to a point where they do own a home. I'm starting to see more of my friends actually get to a point where they're buying homes. Fantastic. Again, I want to be there soon. Hopefully I will be. However, that does bring us to an issue where what's going on with the younger millennials, where, let's face it, we aren't buying homes, man. We just aren't. And a lot of us don't even want to buy homes, which is a problem. The reality is home and private property in general are very, very, very important. When you're renting, and I'm going to get away from the economic issue. I'm just going to talk about the mental idea of this. When you're renting, you have no real tie to the land. You have no reason to really be that invested in what happens to your area, because at the end of the year, you can just get up and go. You don't have to stick around. You can just leave. And I think that's appealing to a lot of millennials who, let's face it, they never learned how to deal with adversity, and if things get bad, they just want to run. They just want to tuck tail and run all the time, right? They want to get someone to help them out instead of doing it themselves. But when you purchase property, when you buy land, when you have something that is yours, and you're stuck here, right? Because let's face it, it's kind of difficult to unload property to a certain regard. Now, I know right now it's definitely a seller's market. However, it's still kind of difficult at times to get rid of land. So it ties you to the area. It ties you to area and makes you actually have to pay attention to what happens around you to a greater degree than you did before. So seeing the fact that 40-year-old millennials are owning homes are great. Hopefully more people will own homes soon. I hope to be owning a new home soon enough here as well. But until that day comes, I will continue to be in this small but nice office. Either way, right now, the majority of millennials suck. Hopefully we can start improving. Hopefully, what are you guys, Gen Z or something like that? You're Gen Z, right? You're the younger ones. Hopefully y'all are going to do a lot better than us. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And of course, comment below, what do you think is going on with millennials? Is it strictly an educational issue? Is the student debt crisis so big that do we have to get involved? I personally don't think so, but what do you think? And of course, check us out on some of our channels. If you're watching on BitChute, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, check us out on BitChute and Minds and all those, all these links, they're all on the side right here. You got YouTube, BitChute, Minds, and of course, Twitch if you just want to see us screw around. Either way, hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again real soon.